Hello and welcome to Alchemy 101, the show that explores all avenues of transformation and aims to offer some useful nuggets that can support us in living in line with nature in a way that's true to our nature, no matter how contrary that might seem, just like this nightingale, the bird that sings out in the dark. I'm JJ, the Practical Alchemist, and I'm delighted you could join me. Today's theme is something that's on a lot of people's minds right now, and that's wealth and health. Later, we'll hear from brain health expert Professor James Goodwin on the correlation between wealth and brain health. But first, Katie Bell, who not only runs a physiotherapy clinic and wellness centre, she also coaches other well-being entrepreneurs in how to move on from being what she calls a circus performer juggling everything to a successful and healthy health business owner. So listen up if you're in the health and wellness industry. I started off by asking Katie how she got started.
Well, I guess in a very short potted history, I went to university to study to be a physio. I qualified as a physio. I worked for somebody else for 5 years and kind of learned the ropes from an observation point of view. So I was seeing what was going on as being a business owner. I come from a family who were in the building trade. So, I spent many weekends filling skips and watching my dad work incredibly hard as a self-employed business owner. He took the business over from my grandpa. So my whole my growing up, I was around people that, ran their own small businesses, but nonetheless, a very busy business. And there was a lot of stress involved with it. And I remember, dad having to write invoices late at night with my mum at the computer because my dad couldn't type quick enough. So I guess I sort of experienced and saw lots of different sides to running your own business. I went into then being a physio, always wanted to be one. I watched somebody else in their business and I never really felt fulfilled in my role. I felt like I'd peaked at sort of 25, 26. I thought, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I'm seeing as many clients as I can possibly see in the week. And I've got aspirations to do much sort of greater things. I went on to open my own business and I became a circus performer. So overnight, I was the physio, the Pilates instructor, the cleaner, the accountant, the receptionist, the debt collector, the window cleaner, you name it, I was it. And I quickly, I reached burnout really quickly. I was absolutely exhausted. I was trying to do everything. I was in that place as a new business owner where you never think you've got enough money or you don't think you can afford to get the help you need.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, in my coaching role, I'm sort of always encouraging people to take that bold step before they, on paper, think they can afford it, because actually it has a huge detriment to your own health and wellness as a business owner when you're trying to chase the money, you're trying to chase everything, you're trying to do everything. So I quickly had to get help. I quickly had to get a team on board. And we grew in very, very quickly to a multiple six-figure business. We've now got a large team of 28 wellness experts that work within our team. And my role changed quite quickly from being the physio, being the only person that I thought clients would only ever want to see me because it was my business. I had to get my head around that and allowing that control to go. And then as the business kind of grew, I stepped out of that clinical role as much and became the leader, became the CEO of the business. And I had to go and learn it. I had to go and read books. I had to go and understand how to run a business. But I think I've done quite a good job. We have a lot of people that we look after in the Sheffield community in their health and wellness. I have a great team, and I think you're only ever as good as the team that you've got around you. But we make a huge difference to the health of the people in Sheffield and our community. And then I've always loved coaching. I've always loved learning, and I stepped into being more of a consultant coach, whatever you want to call me, where I support business owners in the health and wellness industry. So particularly physiotherapists, osteopaths, chiropractors, massage therapists, who are solopreneurs, or perhaps they have team and they have premises, and they are on that hamster wheel that I was on. They are the circus performer. They often have no time. They have very limited flexibility and freedom, which is what a lot of people go into how, running a business for. They think it's going to give them that flexibility and freedom. They're not earning the money they want to make. And a lot of them will say they don't possess the skills to run a business, because we are great at solving people's back problems and knee problems, but we can categorically say we're not trained in being business owners. We got no business training when we went to university, and I don't think anything's changed 15 years on.
No, I don't think it has. No.
So people come into our industry, and one of my biggest passions is that we have great people in our industry that are really good at what they do and can make a huge impact. But if they're not seen, if they're not visible, then they can't make any impact on the health and wellness of their own community in where they have their own business. So fast forward, I saw a niche, and I saw a real need for, there's a lot of coaches and consultants out there, and a lot of them are doing a fabulous job. But I felt like what I had to give was somebody that I live and breathe what they're going through. I've been there, I've walked that path, and I can really resonate with those business owners, and I can really support them in the way that I think they need.
Which is fantastic. And you're absolutely right. You train to do a thing, but nobody teaches you how to make a business out of that, do they? Yeah. And then, you struggle along and you think you have to do it all yourself. And you say, well, I don't have the skills to run a business, but nobody does really have all the skills to run a business. A business is usually a team, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's quickly recognizing that sometimes you don't have to go and learn all the skills.
Exactly.
You have to go and find the right who's and bring those people around you who can then take your business forwards quicker, better, more effectively than you could probably do on your own. It's not to say that we can't do it. We can, but we would get there so slowly.
Yeah. And it's a real struggle for a lot of people, because some of the things that you might have to learn do not come naturally at all. And I speak from experience here. Yeah. So, it's very, very difficult to incentivize yourself to do something which doesn't come naturally. So, but so many, as you say, because you might think, well, I can't afford it right now, or I can't do this, or I can't do. You struggle on your own, and that causes a lot of stress, doesn't it? So
huge amounts of stress, and it's the knock-on effect is, yes, the stress, yes, the anxiety, yes, the worry about the money, but actually it's about your own feeling of self-confidence and self-belief, because the longer you struggle, the harder it becomes, and the more you then end up feeling that you are a failure, you're not good enough at running a business. And that has a knock-on effect in all of your life.
Yes, absolutely. And so then you recognize this, and you did very well in scaling your business from just being you to a bigger team. Sounds that you're doing fantastic work in Sheffield, in the area. Yeah. So that is brilliant. And now helping other people who are in the wellbeing industry to build their businesses and stay sane and healthy. Shall I put it that way?
Absolutely. Build a business that serves them and doesn't starve them.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because when we get on that hamster wheel, and business just kind of takes over, it does take over your life, and I'm really honest with kind of when I coach, and I say, listen, there'll be times in your business that you just have to head down and hustle.
Yeah.
You just have to take the fact that for some weeks you're just not going to sleep quite as well, and you're just not going to have all your food exactly how it should be. This is real life that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we can't, be the people that wake up join the 5 a.m. club and be these, super, efficient business owners every day of the week and eat quinoa for lunch every day. It's reality, is it? Let's be real with this.
Yeah.
But the more that you are on this hamster wheel and you can't get off, it just feels like you're out of control. And before you know it, you have essentially got a monster that you're trying to deal with. And it gets really hard to course correct. It gets really hard to put yourself back in the sort of on the priority list, because you get knocked down. And the longer you allow that to go on for, I speak to business owners, they are tired. What's gone on over the last few years, it has really been challenging for all industries, the health and wellness industry especially. We were very limited in what we were able to do. So the challenges have been real, and it's allowing the business owners to be kind to themselves, to not always chase the money and chase the next thing, but stopping and really getting clear on why they started this business. That's what most people have forgotten when we talk on our initial calls, and I say, why are you doing it? What's it all for? And they can't answer because they've forgotten. And we have to go back to that foundational level, because your business has to serve your life, not starve your life, as I said earlier. You have to create a business that facilitates the life that you want and fits into your life, rather than your life just squeezing around your business.
Yeah. Yes. And I like what you said about it getting harder and harder as you go on in this way to recalibrate, get back on track, because it does become a really difficult thing to do once you've gone so far down the road, because you are exhausted, because you are depleted, because you can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. And you're also then in a habit pattern.
Yeah.
So you end up, we see habits and behaviors in the business owners that we work with. And depending on what research you read, it takes anywhere between 21 days and 90 days to create a habit. Well, these business owners are doing it day in, day out, where they feel that they can't break that cycle, because not managing their emails or constantly checking their emails becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Waking up and checking your emails at 6 a.m. in the morning becomes a habit. And so that in itself is hard to course correct, because you're not only trying to change their actions, but you're having to change the beliefs behind that, which is, if I don't check my emails at 6 a.m, then I will have lost work, or I will have missed somebody wanting to book in, or I will have, I've not responded to somebody quite quickly enough. And you can see that kind of stress and that anxiety behind some of those actions and those behaviours that the business owners are demonstrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you do help people. Now, I think you've got something like 5 tips, for anybody who's listening to this and thinking, I just need to take things in hand. I need to start doing something here. Now, apart from contacting you for help, which we can talk about in a sec, what are the 5 things that you say are, paramount when you want to just start taking control over all of your business and making it something that thrives?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I always say to the business owners that we work with is, we need to start with the why, and we need to work backwards. So we need to think about when we're overwhelmed, and when we're so busy, we can't take stock and think, where am I actually heading? It's like you've got in the car and you're just driving, and you've just got no idea where you're driving to. We need to stop, and we need to read the map, and we need to reset the destination on the sat nav.
Nice. Yeah.
And when we get the destination on the sat nav, it's then like that. What happens is our actions are then clearer. Our decisions are clearer, because as the sat nav does, it will just drive you to where you need to go. So it's about starting with that why. It's about, is the end goal. And for some business owners, looking 5 years ahead, I'm this person, I can't look 5 years ahead.
No.
I'm a shorter term person. Okay. I find that really hard to stretch. If that's hard for you, go a year, go 6 months. It doesn't really matter. But what matters is about saying, right, what am I actually doing all this for? Because if it's not providing you with the freedom and the flexibility, or the income, or the time, or a combination of all of those, what's the point?
Good point. Yes. And then I think another thing that you talk about is that we should feel into what needs to change. So in other words, appraise our business as it stands, and just feel into where things aren't working.
And that is really hard to do, because what British people in particular, and there's no judgment to us Brits, but we're not great at telling you what's great. We're really good at telling you what we haven't done and what we've not got right and what we've not achieved. So sometimes I think the easiest way is to actually sit down and write down currently what you don't like about your business, because that's really easy to do. Might be, I don't like the fact I work 3 evenings a week. I don't like the fact I have to work on a Saturday. I don't like the fact that I am squeezing patients and clients in on my lunch break. I don't like the fact I'm rushing my lunch. I don't like the fact I'm having to deal with my admin on a Sunday. It can be big or small, but we can write this list of what we don't like, and we can feel then into that change of, okay, well, if I was to literally just reverse that. So if I say I don't like working on a Saturday, well, what does good look like to you? I never have to work a weekend again. Then that starts to give us some idea of what needs to change in our business. How can we start to put that in the sat nav? That's the end goal, that I'm not going to work at a weekend. And we can now start making the right actions, taking the right directions to get to that end goal, and really feel into what needs to change. And there'll be loads of things that you want to change in your business, but it's looking and prioritizing it, what the key things are right now that's going to make the biggest impact on your own health and wellness. Because if your bucket's depleted, if your battery's empty, then ultimately you can't serve anybody.
Yeah, we need to be a little less self-deprecating here in the UK. Time for a short break right now, though. We'll be back with more from Katie Bell right after this from our station's sponsors.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. The station that makes you feel good.
And you're listening to Alchemy 101 here on UK Health Radio with me, JJ, the Practical Alchemist, and my guest, physiotherapist and wellness business owner and coach, Katie Bell. And we were talking before the break about being a little less self-deprecating.
And having the confidence. Confidence is a weird thing, isn't it? You can't go and get confidence. Confidence has to come from inside. But because we are a very external gratification society, we get confidence. We think we get confidence from all of these other people.
Yeah.
So by saying yes to, I'll squeeze you in on my lunch break. I was this person, I am absolutely totally understanding where business owners come from, and I had to change. And a big part of me could still be that person as well. But a bigger part of me now realizes the detriment of saying yes and being a people pleaser. When we are saying yes, we're always saying no to something else. There's always a trade-off.
Yeah, another very good point. Yeah. And then you say, define more closely who you help and how.
Yeah, and this is, I would say these are like the why, the who, and the how and you are like my 4 foundational in business. We talked about the why. I've said, let's go back to the beginning and work out why we're running this business. The who, as you've just said there, is about trying to not be everything to everybody, because then you end up being nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
And when you're everything to everybody, your marketing doesn't land. The type of person that you might attract into your business is perhaps not the right type of person that you want, the right type of client, which then in itself can create stress. So defining who it is that you help, what problems do you solve for people? Because people aren't buying your solution. They're not buying you as a physio. They're not buying your Pilates sessions. They're not buying your yoga classes. They're buying themselves out of their problem. So defining who it is that I really love to work with, defining what problems I solve for those people, means that you will stand out in your industry. You will become the expert at something, rather than trying to be the jack of all trades and the master of none.
And then the how. How do you deliver?
Yeah, so this is my kind of like third thing. A lot of business owners in our industry, if I link it to the health industry, we are running what we call a pay-as-you-go model. So you would come into me with a back problem. I would see you would pay cash at the desk or a card at the desk, and then you would hopefully book in next week, and then you might pay again. And my quest is to try and get business owners to see it from two different ways. From a business way, that a pay-as-you-go model is not sustainable, it is not predictable, and it is a high stress environment for any business owner, because you basically start the month at zero.
Yeah.
And then you've got to chase. That's really stressful. And then think about it from a value to your clients. If you had a back problem and I didn't believe I could fix you in one session, why am I running a pay-as-you-go one session model? If my belief as a business owner is you would need 3-5 sessions, I would like you to do a course of Pilates because that's going to solve your problem, then it's my duty and my responsibility to facilitate that and really look at how you work with your clients so you can move away from this one session offering into a program of treatment, which creates more predictable, sustainable income for you. But most importantly, it gives your clients the best possible chance of results and solutions.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Absolute sense. And then lastly, recognize that your business is a product of your beliefs.
I love Napoleon Hill's quote where he says, whatever a man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. This was something I think I maybe touched upon in the why, but can expand on here, is that if you have a moment to take stock and you look at your business now, your environment now, look at the desk that you sat on, the chair that you sat in, where you're listening to this, the house that you live in, the car that you drive, your environment, your business is a direct result of all of your thoughts and your beliefs, because your thoughts and beliefs dictate your actions. So if we want different outcomes, we have to change our belief system. So when we are looking at the why, a lot of us will decide on our why based on where we are now, our current narrative now, which is, I'm not great at running a business. I don't think I've got the skills to be a business owner. I'm not busy enough. We're not making the income. So therefore, the goals that we set ourselves, they're small, they're restricted because we are setting them from where we are now. So I always say to business owners, if you've got to do some of this work and you can take half an hour out, go somewhere that is not your home, that is not your office, go somewhere that is inspirational, that makes you think bigger. You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you want to make more money and if you want to be more successful, go and start hanging out with people who are making more money and being more successful, because just that natural energy that they will emit, you will attract, and it will show you possibility. It will take you from a place of lack to a place of abundance. And as a business owner, we should be making decisions from that place of confidence and abundance, because the decisions we make from a place of lack are often the wrong ones, or the ones that keep us small and don't step us out of our comfort zone. So recognizing that your beliefs have created exactly what you've got now. So you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't deal with the mindset behind that, your strategy won't change anything.
This goes throughout life.
Absolutely. Mindset is the whole, you can't out-train a bad diet. You can't out-strategy a faulty mindset. You can try really hard and use lots of force, but you're going to have stunted results. The business is going to feel hard. Life is going to feel hard. And law of attraction is a really powerful law. It's a universal law. We can't ignore it. People might be woo and really get the law of attraction, and some people very science-based, not quite so on board with it. But whatever your belief is around it, it is a thing.
Yeah. We'll leave people to make their own judgments on
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. Katie, it's been an absolute joy to speak with you today. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show, because I think it's really important that people in the wellbeing industry look after themselves and make sure that their businesses are healthy as well, so that there's that symbiosis, right? Healthy person, healthy business. That's what we want to achieve.
Absolutely.
And it's fantastic that you've taken up the baton to help people achieve that. Now, if anybody wants to contact you, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, you can go to our website, which is thrive-businesscoaching.com. There's lots of things that you can access our free resources through there. You can book a call, which is what we call an audit call. I want to reassure listeners, this is not a sales call. I can't bear anything like this. This is you getting on a call with me. We audit your business. We ask you questions. We go through where it is now. We look at where you want to be, and we look at the challenge that's holding you back. So at the very least, you're going to leave that call with a nice action, step-by-step guide of what I need to go and do next. I would love people to listen to my podcast. I have a podcast called Treat Your Business.
Yeah, and I like that name. Great name.
Thank you. Great name. Yeah, it's released weekly, and it's really short, sharp, bite-sized episodes that people hopefully can listen to when they're out and about. That just gives them that inspiration and that confidence, that motivation on what they can do in their business to take it to the next level. Or you can join our Facebook group, Treat Your Business Facebook group. In there, loads of free resources, workshops, events for people to be a part of, and be involved in a community of like-minded business owners as well.
Katie Bell there with some great advice on how to run a healthy health and wellbeing business, or any business really. Well, Katie talked there about mindset, and my next guest knows all about the brain. I'm very happy to welcome back Professor James Goodwin. He's Director of Science and Research Impact at the Brain Health Network, author of a great book called Supercharge Your Brain, which we've talked about on this show before, and he's one of the world's foremost experts on brain health. I asked him, what is the correlation between brain health and wealth?
Thanks, JJ. That is the $64,000 question, which over many decades of science is now being unraveled. And there are essentially three aspects. One is that increased wealth in society generally has improved what we call population aging, longevity, or the age to which we live. Secondly, there's a direct correlation between wealth and how well we are, not just in terms of what diseases we have, but in terms of our well-being and our capacity to look after ourselves. And thirdly, because wealth affects health generally, it will also affect our brain health. And this has been recognized at the highest level now by the World Health Organization, and by the World Economic Forum, and by the G7 meetings. They've all started to talk about brain health should be a population health target for measures by governments. And in order to improve brain health, because brain health is the key to the rest of health, they're interconnected, we should improve the living conditions of society.
Yeah, I don't often get political on this show, but it does seem to me that not all governments are really taking that seriously, even though it may have come down from on high. In the UK, we've got access to the NHS. Everybody has access to the NHS, but we still have a lot of unhealthy people who are probably disadvantaged in terms of wealth. So yes, it's more than that, isn't it?
Yes, it's not just access to healthcare, although that's hugely important, as you say, JJ, but it's also what we call the secular conditions, which are hugely different between those with money and those without money. If I can just explain for your listeners how we got to the point where we're living to such an old age. People think it was medicine that's done that over the last 100 years. It is not. Over the course of evolution, millions of 1.5 million years for humans of genetics and natural selection, that process only increased our life expectancy, the age to which we live, by 10 years. But from hunter-gatherer times, that was static at about 40 years of age. And now we're living into our 80s. In fact, the life expectancy for men in the UK is about 79 and women about 83. And we can talk about that difference. So how do we know what's caused this huge increase in our life expectancy? It's the Swedish church books, which recorded life and death systematically over a nation from 1750 onwards. And from 1750 to the present time, secular improvements, redistribution of wealth, sanitation, improved living conditions, better food, heating, better clothes, all of that reduced the risk of death, and so we're now living into our 80s. What we're faced with now, if you like, is too much affluence, in a way, because our lifestyle has become degenerate in terms of our health. So we all suffer in our 70s and 80s from comorbidity. That's multiple degenerative health conditions like heart disease, COPD, obesity, and diabetes, and so on. At the age of about 65, most people have got one long-term illness. By the time they've got to 85, that's 5 long-term illnesses and 20 prescriptions a day. So this increase in life expectancy has plateaued off because although our living conditions have eliminated the risk of death, they've simultaneously created comorbidities which increase the risk of death, and it's only medicine that's keeping that at bay. So that's the picture about wealth and longevity. As society has become wealthier and fairer and more productive, our longevity has improved. There are 2 aspects to wealth. One is being wealthy in terms of all your assets, and the other is income. And if we look at the top 10% and the bottom 10% of income alone, in men, there's 14.6 years in difference of how long we live, and in women, 10.1 years. Now, you might wonder why there's a difference between men and women. That's because men suffer more from long-term illnesses, and they have a much higher level of inflammation as they age, and therefore that's more amenable to an effect by improving your living conditions through money. That's how it's done now. Now, that's longevity. Now, in fact, just one other thing. Those huge differences between rich and poor, if you like, work on the assumption that there's an income difference across the life course. But actually, we know that's not true. We know that some people who have high incomes, their income falls, and some people have low incomes, their income goes up. And that's about 50-50. 50% of those with money lose their income, get lower in terms of how much they earn, and the reverse. Now, if you take that into account, there's only, for men, a 2.4-year gap in longevity, and in women, a 2.2-year gap in longevity. So in other words, the risk of death needle is fluid, and it moves throughout life depending on our income, because our income directly goes towards 2 things. 1, our level of well-being and happiness, and 2, our living conditions. That's why there are those differences. And it goes to show that if we don't eliminate differences in income, we don't do that. We reduce them. That makes a huge difference to people's longevity. Now, in terms of health and wealth, both high income and both high wealth result in better health. So, for example, you've got much higher rates of long-term illnesses in those in lower income. So those earning less than £29,000 a year, diabetes, for example, there's a prevalence of 11% of that group with diabetes. But if you look at those with more than £75,000 a year, then that's only half that, of about 5.5%. It's a big one is no teeth. No teeth is a huge measure of your risk of poor health.
Wow.
Oral health is really, really important.
Yeah.
Because if you have no teeth, number one, it increases the level of inflammation in the mouth. And secondly, you're not able to digest food properly because chewing is really important to that.
Exactly. It's the first step.
Level of nutrition, yeah. Well, and those less than £29,000 a year, 12% of the population have no teeth, and that's
wow.
About 3% above 75,000 a year. In other words, they can afford better dental care. We know in the UK, we've got a huge problem with dental health relationships. And another one is obesity. Obesity, childhood poverty and obesity are associated because of poor diet, and obesity in childhood is a huge marker and predictor of ill health later in life.
So health and wealth are totally intertwined. Well, it's time for another break now, but we'll be back with more from Professor James Goodwin after these messages from our station sponsors.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK station that makes you feel good.
And you're listening to Alchemy 101 on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio, with me, JJ, the practical alchemist, and we were hearing from Professor James Goodwin about the complex issue of how wealth affects our health.
It is a complex issue. Throughout our lives, whether we're rich or poor, there are a number of what we call modifiable risk factors. These are factors which prejudice us towards good or bad health, and they can be changed according to the level of our wealth and income. It's not just wealth and income, it's also education, but if you like, education is a proxy for good living conditions, because those who are well educated very often qualify and do well in life, live in a professional environment, have a wide understanding of their own health, access to the health service, and also what in their environment goes towards living well. Whereas those who are poorly educated don't necessarily have those things. So if you're poor, the extent of those modifiable risk factors is high. If you're rich, the extent of those modifiable risk factors is lower. What are we talking about? We're talking about nutrition. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about physical activity and physical exercise. We're talking about ambient temperature, heat or cold in the summer and winter. We're talking about levels of hydration. Now, you might think, well, you don't need wealth for some of those things. For most of them, you do. If you have a higher disposable income, you've got the means to make the right decisions. Now, that's one of the reasons why those who are well off do better out of responding to public health messages than those who are not well off.
It's very difficult to create an environment, surely, where we can have everybody living at an optimal level of wealth and health.
I would agree with that, JJ, and I would say that since 1750, and this sounds a bit irrelevant. Well, 1750 was a long time ago, but we know that since 1750, and that's through the Industrial Revolution, the Digital Revolution, and now a longevity revolution, society, modern Western societies, science-informed societies, haven't done a bad job, in actual fact, in reducing the risk of death by redistributing wealth. Now, we haven't redistributed to the point where there are no differences between people, because that affects productivity. Productivity affects wealth, and therefore, if everybody's poor, then everybody suffers from ill health, because we can't change the circumstances around us to make us live better.
Yeah, and so then how does that sit with instances around the globe where we have indigenous people maybe who are living, we would say, at a very low level of wealth, and yet they're quite healthy?
Well, that's a huge anthropological question.
I thought I'd just throw that one in.
Yeah, one of the estimates is the differences between men and women in terms of their health, and women have been they've been disadvantaged in terms of their health because they get more long-term health conditions than men, but they weather them better. And I'm talking in generalities now. There's huge individual differences. They seek medical help and they bother their doctors more where they can. So that means that the paradox is that across the world, wherever people are, women live longer than men, even though their health tends to be worse. Now, in terms of, does your state of development influence your health? Yes, it does. If you look at a few countries in the world, Pakistan is one of them, Yemen is another, where men actually live longer than women. Now, in terms of Pakistan, for example, it's a lose-lose situation for women there, because women aren't allowed, as far as I know, and there are less women in medical schools there, so there are less women doctors. And you're not allowed to go to a doctor for cultural reasons, right? If you're a woman and they're male. So there are less women doctors, and therefore women have the less opportunity to go to a women's doctor. And if there isn't a woman doctor, they don't get to see a doctor. And if you don't get to see a doctor, you don't influence the trajectory of the greater number of long-term illnesses that women have. So these are global problems. Globally, men now, across the world, the average lifetime expectancy at birth is 72. For women, it's 79.
Yeah.
We brought that down in the UK from an 8-year difference in the 1970s to a 4-year difference now. And that's because men have got more access in well-developed countries to medical care than they have in non-developed countries, and therefore the wealth of that nation enables them to get the healthcare they need to mitigate the age-related long-term illnesses. Do you want me to talk a little bit about brain health?
Yes, I do, yeah.
3 questions we might ask: how well am I thinking? How well am I interacting with others? And how well do I feel? My sense of well-being. In other words, how happy am I? Well, in 2010, a well-known economist, Angus Deaton at Princeton University, did the numbers, ran the numbers, and found that there's an optimum amount of income beyond which you can't get any happier. So the peak or the apogee of that appears to be $75,000, or about £50,000. Now, I think that's gone up since 2010. We're now in 2023, and there was a study done in a journal called PNAS in 2022. I think it was Canadian researchers from University of British Columbia. They got two wealthy Canadian donors around the world in 7 countries to give $10,000 to 200 recipients.
Wow.
Now, receiving that cash injection resulted in a surge of up to 3 times their measurable happiness. How happy do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? So in some countries that lifted it by a factor of 3. And even in some instances, those with over $100,000 a year, on receiving that 20,000, their happiness, that 10,000, their happiness levels went up. So money does tend to make you happier, but beyond that ceiling, it doesn't. Some researchers have said it's how you spend your money. There was a famous experiment in Vancouver where people were given $100 each and said, go out and spend it and then come back and tell us how happy you feel. Those who spent it on themselves felt the least happy.
Oh, really?
Those who spent it on others and gave it to charity or the homeless or whatever felt really good about themselves. It was a lot better. So it might be how you're spending your money after, you've reached that peak of $75,000, £50,000. So yes, the answer is money will make you happy, but only to a limit.
Right. So everybody who says, well, you can't, money won't make you happy, you can't find happiness having money, they're wrong. It
makes the wheels of life turn smoother. And people do report on up to that figure that they get happier because of the amount of money, their income. But after that level, apparently people don't report being any happier than that. So there's an effect of income on your sense of happiness and your sense of well-being. And we know that affects mental health. Now, there's a massive relationship between mental health and your income. So mental health problems make it harder to earn, harder to manage money, and even reduces your inclination to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that, therefore, results in financial difficulty. If you've got financial difficulties and you haven't got enough money to live on, that causes stress and causes anxiety. That's the perceived side of it. The actual side of it is the activities around that, like debt collection, pressure from the banks, and going without. Those things then lead to either the diagnosis of a mental health condition or your mental health getting worse. And conditions like depression and anxiety, diagnosed conditions of depression and anxiety, they result in things like increased compulsivity, so increased compulsion to spend money, bigger memory problems, poor decision-making, poor confidence. So you've got this vicious circle. If you've got mental health problems, it puts you into financial difficulty.
Yeah.
Financial difficulty, it makes your mental health conditions worse. Giving people money only goes so far. Right? The objective findings of research say you can only go so far. And I would say that because productivity improves wealth, we need a society where people are placed in a position where they can become productive. That will improve their sense of purpose, their sense of well-being.
Yes,
and will actually improve their income without being given the money.
Yeah. So you could say
there's a balance to be had there, and we're getting into the scary area of politics, and I try not to go there because it's very divisive and very polemic. But objective findings of science are that a certain income results in improved health if your behavior changes, and if your education level changes, and if you can afford to spend that money on improving your living conditions. If individual health behavior of any person results in spending money on other things, gambling, for example, fast cars, partners, or whatever, that is not necessarily going to improve your health. And in any case, the level of your health is determined by your lifelong living conditions, not by winning on the football pool.
Yeah, yeah. So we're just coming to the end of this now. It seems to me as if the ideal would be to make sure that everybody has a level of income, a level of monetary wealth to allow them to be as happy as is possible, but also give them the opportunity to be productive. In other words, allow people to create as well. And a lot of people are talking these days about the need for us all to just allow our creativity to come through, which doesn't always happen in jobs these days. So allowing people to express themselves, be creative, be productive, and give everybody a decent level of income so that they can make choices that are more healthy than not. That would be the ideal. It would be great if we could all get our governments to implement that, wouldn't it? It would be fantastic.
Yes, it would. And I have to say that successive British governments of both sides have attempted over many years to tackle that lower 10 or 20% of income brackets in order to improve their living conditions, and which will necessarily go to improving their health and their health and well-being. Where it becomes divisive and polemic is knowing what works. In fact, the government was so concerned about not knowing what works that they set up 5 What Works institutes about probably 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
One of them I know well because I was seconded there when I was the chief scientist at Age UK. That's the Centre for Better Ageing. President was Lord Filkin. But there's a Centre for Local Economies. There's a Centre for Young People. These are all about trying to understand what policy changes actually make a difference.
Yeah.
People will always argue about it because a change in policy doesn't necessarily get enacted on the ground. And even if it's enacted on the ground, it might not influence enough people.
Yeah.
Actually divining or ascertaining the effect of those policies is a very difficult process. It's not just policy. It's everything around that.
Yes, exactly.
I would say one of the biggest influences on health and well-being is what we call individualized health behavior, what the individual person does to do that.
Yeah.
Those who are well-educated have better health behavior. Those who are more poorly educated have poorer health behavior. So one of the big secrets to this, for me, is improving people's level of understanding and their level of education about their health and about their living conditions.
I think that's, that would be ideal, wouldn't it? If we could have more and not just the generalized messages that we get these days. Well, thank you very much for coming onto the show today and talking about this, because it's something that we might all bear in mind as we go into whatever the future holds. If we're going to build a decent society, then maybe this is one of the key points to look at. Always good to have Professor Goodwin on the show, but sadly that's all we have time for. Remember, you can listen to UK Health Radio on all the main podcast platforms. It can be as easy as just asking Siri or Alexa to play UK Health Radio, and that's if you've got either of those. Also, do check out the show I co-host with psychiatrist and coach Dr. Mark Goulston here on UK Health Radio, called Hurt Less, Live More. It's the place for raw, uplifting and hopefully enlightening conversations with fantastic guests. That's it for today, though. I hope that you can join me again soon here on UK Health Radio, but for now, it's goodbye from me and that nightingale.